Good evening, Pennsylvania. Michigan, Motor City. Camp Pendleton, hoorah. Hey, Sean.
Sean wants to know when the 6-arc video is coming out.
It did. It was used with the, oh, no, I'm sorry, it's not. It's coming out with the Wyndham MCS. We got lots of, we have lots of stuff to film. I got a lot of range stuff done recently.
Yeah, we'll be filming all day tomorrow. I'll give it a couple minutes, let people
drink of the night,
come in.
My banquet. Exeter, Rhode Island. My nephew plays football for Rhode Island State.
Hey, Steve.
Hey, Steve.
Next crime series is going to be the JFK. It's evolved into a much larger project than I ever saw.
Yeah, it's going to be her biggest challenge.
I wanted him to do a video on it. I didn't realize what I was getting myself into. It's now grown from a 2-part to a 3-part to a 4-part series. And we are going to be heading to Dallas soon. We just got some new equipment in that we needed to be more mobile for filming. Make sure that we can deliver the best audio while we're filming on location, which will be a new set of challenges, but I'm up to it. I think it'll be worth it.
Well, the JFK series, it's being done from a scientific aspect. So, you know, when you look at science, in order for something to be scientific, you have to have repeatability. So you're going to see the experiments that show the repeatability, which show what actually happened, and everything has been done scientifically and done with 2020 technology instead of 1963.
Yes, we appreciate any donations that come in tonight, because SAS is being hit a little bit hard when it comes to donations and donation amounts. We are down about 30% for Patreon. And those donations are what keep our channel going. And costs are extremely high right now, with even when we borrow guns and having to ship them back out, and the cost of ammo is on the rise. And
we pay more money to ship a gun than we do for the actual video.
Yeah, I really make about $300 a month in YouTube revenue. So if you guys are capable, if you obviously if you have the means to do it, donations would be great. If you'd like to ask a question tonight, we don't just take paid questions. Anybody can ask a question, just pop it into the chat line. But if you would like to make a donation, we do recommend Donor Box. That's our preferred method, just because Google does take 30% of all donations. You can just put your question in the comment section, and I'll get an email, and you'll get priority over all the questions that are coming in. Otherwise, you can also use the super chat function. I know that that's sometimes easier for everybody, but if you're going to make any larger donations, I would definitely recommend Donor Box, just because, like I said, 30% to Google is quite a hit, and we could use every dollar over here at SAS. So thank you so much for joining us, and we're going to kick off. The first one tonight is Steve. Thank you so much, Steve. He submitted his question on Donor Box earlier today, and we only have 2 submitted questions, and then we'll go into the chat. Please explain the notch in the top of an AR-15 hammer face.
The notch is what that was for. When the weapon went from military to commercial, when they went to do a semi-automatic only, the modifications were made by Colt to make it so it was not fully automatic, and the notch was a anti-slam fire or an anti-full auto conversion by removal of the disconnector. You used a special bolt. The bolt carrier was the one that had the entire head of the firing pin exposed. So what happened was that notch, as the bolt carrier would ride back, if the disconnector failed, the bolt carrier, as it come back, it would drive the hammer back, but as it would go forward, that notch would catch on that firing pin. If the hammer wasn't held back by the disconnector, it would stop it from slam firing. That was something that Colt had developed and started really with the first production run of semi-automatic onlys. Over the years, in 2009, Colt stopped using the semi-automatic bolt carrier when ATF approved the use of the full auto bolt carriers. However, Colt's, they had their own, those are cast parts, so they had their own molds for the semi-automatic only hammers. So they continued using the semi-automatic only hammers, but they stop using the carriers. So that was part of the anti-conversion, or to stop the gun from slam firing. If you have Black Rifle 2, there's a full description of it in the back of Black Rifle 2.
Next question is from Juan on Donor Box. Thank you, Juan. Colt LE901 18SE with a Surefire SOCOM 762 RC2 firing Federal 168 grain match has developed peening on the bolt catch where it meets the bolt face when locked open. The rifle is only fired suppressed. Round count estimate is past 2K. The original buffer spring is 1 coal shorter than a new one. What are your thoughts, recommendations on the issue? And he says, thank you.
Well, there could be an issue with the bolt, or I'm sorry, with the. That's not what you would call a military proven rifle. It's something that never really got fully developed, in my opinion, for military use. What causes that peening, obviously, is when the bolt slams into the bolt catch when it fires its last shot. Have it peening like that, you have to have a lot of acceleration from where it's in its full rear position to when it hits. So my guess is because that uses the standard mil spec buffer tube. You're using a shorter buffer, so you have to have a heavier spring. And also, I wouldn't put it beyond Colt that could be a heat treating issue. To be honest with you, I have an LE901. I don't use it, and the reason I don't use it is not because I don't love it. I actually do love it. It's probably one of my favorite 308s. But Colt does not provide spare parts. So if something goes wrong or something breaks, you can't replace it. Keep that in mind, unfortunately, because that bolt catch, that is not a military specific or military standard or industry standard. None of the parts on this rifle are. I would really keep that in mind when you're shooting this rifle. If something goes wrong, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to replace those parts. I doubt the suppressor has anything to do with it. The suppressor opens it up faster, but the problem is when that bolt accelerates and it hits that catch. And my guess really is that part was not heat treated properly, and that's probably why that's happening. But again, they're not using the proper buffer tube because they want to use 5.56 in it as well, and you can't use a longer buffer tube with a 5.56.
Buddy wants to know best non-ambi safety selector.
The Badass with just the cap on the end. For the most part, if I put safeties on, I use ambi safeties. It's just something I've gotten used to, and I usually use the Talon or the Badass. Those are my two favorites. But yeah, if you're going to go with just one, just go with the Badass with just either the short throw on the right side or just the cap.
Jacob, thank you for your donation on Donor Box. I didn't see a question attached to it. I did send you an email though, so if you're listening, drop me an email if you forgot to put your question in there. How do you zero your ARs?
I do 25 meter zero. We do that. The Army does that. I have overseas done 100, a 50-yard zero. We hate to do that in Turkey. The guards or the people who did the border patrol in Turkey, they didn't like the 25 meter because they had a hard time hitting headshots at 100 yards, which is what they wanted. Try to explain to them the whole purpose of a 25 meter zero is to have a BZO to 300 yards, so you don't have to adjust, but you also aim center mass with that. So the only way to make them happy was to do a zero where they would be able to get headshots at 100. So we had to do a 50 meter zero. This is one of those things where there's lots of different ways to do things. Everybody has their own way. The U.S. military does it for a reason, and I simply do it as I was trained. Even with my red dot optics, I zero at 25 meters. Magnified optics, I'll do it 100. But this is one of those things where there's not a right or wrong way to do it. It's how you want to do it. I know people that do the 50. I even know people who do a 15 meter zero. They have their own super secret formula. But I do it the way that I was trained, 25 meter. That's how I trained overseas too. According to Colt, in my manuals I wrote for Colt, manuals that they wrote all these years, it was always a 25 meter zero.
Logan wants to know, what are your opinions on the in-range TV Brownell's KE arms, KP15 polymer lower? Also, would you rather fight one horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses?
I have requested, because that's part of the What Would Stoner Do program. I had requested from Brownell's one to take a look at, because again, I haven't seen it yet. I've seen the same videos that you have, but I make up my own mind and I do my own testing. So unfortunately, I can't answer that because I haven't had a chance to get one. But I will tell you, I do have one on order with Brownells. As you know, everything is on back order. You can't get anything from anybody right now. But I requested a full what would Stoner do rifle.
Dustin on Donor Box wants to know, thank you, Dustin. I understand your preference in CHF chrome line barrels, but how do you feel about nitride treated bolt carriers?
They're certainly fine. In fact, I prefer the nitride over any of the nickel. Absolutely, I prefer a chrome plated carrier over everything. But nitride probably, I had done some testing for one of my manufacturers. I did a comparison where I had 6 or 7 different kinds of bolt carrier finishes. I fired 500 rounds through each. I had 2 of each. One was lubricated, one was unlubricated, and then the analysis was which ones were easy to clean, which ones were harder to clean. And my number one I liked was the chrome, and that was number 2 was the nitride. Because they were the easiest to clean, much more so than any of the nickel, especially the standard nickel boron.
How can I mitigate overgassing my suppressed Colt Commando?
The best thing that you can do is probably get your hands on one of the bootleg or one of the Gemtech bolt carriers that has the adjustment for suppressed and non-suppressed, so you're letting less gas in, or put a gas valve on there. This is something that nothing that you can do about it. You can also put a heavier buffer in there if you have to, but probably your best bet would be to have an adjustable gas valve in the carrier so you're able to decrease the gas going into the system.
Okay, we're going to scroll up to the top, and I'll be pulling questions. Don't despair if you put your question in. It's been a while. I do go up to the top and try to stay in somewhat of an order. How do you recommend stocking up on ammo, reloading, or buying bulk at 13,000 rounds in a drum, etc.?
I don't know, because I don't. You see ammunition here. This is not end of the world zombie. This is ammunition that I use.
No,
so
he goes through a lot.
Yeah, so I don't stock. I mean, I can go through 5,000 rounds in a month, 6,000 rounds in a month. So I don't. So
I can tell you, prior to the madness, even this desk in front of us used to be stocked about 4 feet tall, about what is it, like a quart of wood, about a quart wood's size of ammunition. It was at least 3 feet deep and at least 4 foot high, and that's gone.
Yeah. So as I said, we don't. I'll tell you. Probably, I don't know, 17 years ago, I stopped. 17 years ago, I stopped pretty much doing reloading, and it was not because I didn't enjoy it. It was just because of health reasons. My hands with my arthritis, I just couldn't do it anymore. I used to enjoy reloading, and I would do humongous lots of reloading. It wasn't for, again, stocking. It was for shooting. Now, of course, I do this. I have the manufacturers provide it to me, so I don't have to do it. Unfortunately, these days I would have to buy it because I can't reload if I didn't have the arthritis issues. I can guarantee you'd see my 3 Dillon square deal Bs back there in my RCBS rock chucker, because I really enjoyed doing it.
Remember when I used to get you reloading tools for Valentine's Day?
You bought me that RCBS case trimmer.
Yeah.
Oh, that case trimmer. That was right at the time when the arthritis was starting.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't do the hand crank anymore. So she got me that, and that. I was pretty much mainly reloading the 5.56 and 7.62 NATO. The pistols weren't really much of an issue. Then I just got to the point where trying to pick up bullets and put them in the thing, and then the crank, it would just hurt really bad. So it depends. If you enjoy doing the reloading, by all means. But the thing is, right now, components are just as hard to get as live ammunition, because all the components that usually are sold for reloading are all going to manufacturers to make ammunition. So, I don't think either way you're any better off. As I said, for me, I don't have a choice because of the arthritis. I have to buy ammo. I would have to get it. I have to purchase it.
Chris on Donor Box, he says, no request. Thanks for the content and your code for G96 gun treatment.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. If anybody needs any G96, you can go to the website. It's SAS10. You save 10% off your entire order.
I have 2 new G96 products that I am reviewing right now. I got one of their first samples of their GI. It's a bio bore solvent. and I am loving it. It's excellent. And since I'm starting to do the shooting with the M14 and the M1 Garands for the first time, I have guns that you need to use grease on, and they have a white lithium grease that I've been using as well. So those are the two latest products from theirs that I'm using that I'm having a lot of luck with.
Matthew wants to know what your thoughts on the Sig Sauer DVO optic, that won the DoD contract.
Very nice. I have one, but mine's not that color. I prefer the gray or black. They are excellent optics. I've been using Sig optics for quite some time, and I have never had a problem. The only problem I ever had was a throw lever mount that broke, and it has nothing to do with the optics. The military is buying a lot of stuff from Sig. Sig is innovative. They're doing very good with new products. They're a company which is self-encompassing. You can buy guns from them. You can buy ammo from them. You can buy optics from them. You can buy accessories from them. They own something that's a one-shop stop for any military law enforcement. You can buy everything that Sig, suppressors. Optics are clear, adjustable. You have lighted reticles. You have everything that you would want. And for military purposes, that serves quite well. You don't have to spend, $2,000-3,000 for a good optic. As nice as the Swarovski and Steiner and all that stuff is, you don't need that to have your rifle be extremely accurate. There's plenty of other manufacturers out there, and half the cost will provide you with optics that will do the same thing, just without having to spend that premium dollar.
Adnan on DonorBox.
Hi,
Thank you, Adnan. He wants to know the cold hammer forged barrels that are sold by Centurion Arms. Does Monty Leclerc produce them in-house, or are they made or supplied by another manufacturer?
Oh, they're supplied by another manufacturer. There's only a few companies in this country that have cold hammer forged. Probably more than that. Probably maybe a handful. And for as far as ARs, you look at Daniel Defense. You look at FN. Those are the two of the major ones. LWRCI has a cold hammer forge. I believe it is. I believe Ruger has a cold hammer forge as well. So yeah, it's the equipment to do it is extremely expensive. So you have a relatively small group of companies that manufacture them. But yeah, for any small company to have that, it's just not going to happen. LWRC is probably the smallest company I know that has a cold hammer forge.
And Racer says his wife hates the smell of G96 bore solvent.
Bore solvent is pretty brutal. The ammonia on that is nasty. It's the gun treatment that has the legendary smell.
I've also plugged in the Centurion codes in case you guys would like to save a little money if they happen to have anything on their website available for sale. It's 3% off complete rifles, 5% off uppers and lowers, and 10% off everything else on their website.
I spoke to Monty last week. I am hoping to be receiving some of his newer products and some of his closeout stuff to do a review on, because I've been wanting to for quite some time. He's been hard to get a hold of. So with any luck, that's going to go through.
They've been hammered, as everybody is in the industry, I'm sure. Typically, when an AR-15, AR-10 internal components get overworked or overgassed, the rate of fire of that weapon usually increases along with wear and tear. But in contrast, the AK-47 is usually overgassed to reliably function its long stroke external piston mechanism. It seems like the rate of fire usually stays consistent with 600 rounds per minute. Could you explain how it could stay consistent and not have a higher than normal rate of fire?
Well, first off, you have massive overgassing to begin with. And with that one, the way that's designed is you have all the gas that blows by the piston when it fires. Then you have the big holes for it to come out of, where it's not in an expansion chamber and it's a closed cylinder. That's pretty much the main reason is it's overgassed to begin with, and it's getting rid of at the same time. For as far as gas port erosion, their AK-47s, it's not a direct gas port. It's, instead of it being up and down, it's on an angle, and then so you have sort of an oval shape. Gas port in the barrel, those don't erode. But regardless, because of the way that it uses gas, the fact that you do have all that gas that blows out all over the sides, you have that. An M16 or anything that doesn't. Let me rephrase this so it sounds right. If you look at your AR-15 or you look at any of your high-quality external piston guns, you'll notice that on the bolt carrier on the M16, you have 3 gas rings. And if you look at most of the external piston guns, Sig, HK, Caracal, any of them, you'll see gas rings. those gas rings seal that chamber up, so it requires less gas to operate. So it doesn't require as much, and it's pretty much metering out what it needs and then bleeds it immediately. So as those gas ports get larger, it's bringing more into the system, and it's causing it to open quicker before it expels it. AKs aren't that way. As soon as that gas goes up there, it's already flowing past the the sides before it knocks it back. It's the way the whole system is. As Kalashnikov said, he made it simple. Yes, it's just by overgassing, you're overcoming all that gas that's being leaked around the sides of the piston. And with that combination, that's why it pretty much always stays the same.
Oh, we have an Australian in the house.
No worries. My daughter wants to go to Queensland in the worst way.
She just wants to hold a koala.
Yes. And of course, I'm terrified of your black mambas.
He wants to know the only ARs being imported are PWS Mark 116, HK MR556A1, and Wilson Combat Recon Tactical Super Sniper. How would you rank those?
Imports?
That's the only thing that's being imported.
No.
That's the only ARs being imported into Australia.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
He wants you to rank the ARs that are being imported currently into Australia between, like, as far as best to worst. PWS Mark 116, HK MR556A1, and Wilson Combat Recon. Well,
the Wilson Combat and the HK are just way overpriced. I'm sure those are more expensive than the PWS. The PWS will do everything you need it to do. The PWS will last you longer than the HK. Wilson is just it's a very overpriced customized gun. So for an overall rifle, I probably go with the PWS.
Dylan says he likes the recent Colt video. Thank you, Dylan.
Yeah, I can't believe how that video blew up.
Can IMI 168 grain 7.62 by 51 damage in AR-10 chambered in 308? Will it hurt the barrel or fit a standard magazine?
Magazines, depending on how they're loaded, but usually it's the M118LR, which is the 175 grain. You have to understand that you've heard 223 doesn't work, and if 5.56 doesn't work in a 223, which is correct because the 5.56 is overpowered. When you look at the 7.62 NATO versus 308, it's the opposite. The 308 has more power to it than the 7.62 NATO does. So if you have a 308 chamber, it will fire everything. There's nothing out there that a modern rifle, all the rifles you see that are 7.62, those are 308 chambers. For you to find a true 7.62 millimeter chamber these days is pretty much rare.
How do you feel about POF Rouge as a one rifle for self-defense? Have you looked into the Roam AR-10 yet?
No, I've never even heard of the Roam AR-10. The term Roam for me, I always put with cheap, shitty pistols. So I have to say I've never looked into it. Anything that POF puts out is good stuff. It's good self-defense stuff. But the Roam I never heard of.
What 5.56 barrel length do you think does not get enough love?
Probably 16. Everybody, everybody wants SBRs. They want the 14.5 inch. They want the 10.5, 11.5. Where ballistically and accuracy, I prefer the 16 over everything. A lot of people dog it. Of course, they have to because of the fact that it's at, if you don't want an FA, you have to go with it. But if you have the opportunity to go with a 14.5 versus a 16 inch, I prefer the 16 inch. Once you hit 16 inches, it's there's not a lot of difference between 16 and 20 inch, and the benefit between 16 and 20 inch you're not going to see until you get well after 300 yards. So you guys who are shooting less than 300 yards, you will see no benefit having a 20 inch over a 16 or over even a 14.5 inch.
Any thoughts on CMMG 22 LR drop-in conversion?
I don't like them. And the reason I don't like them is because the bore on a 5.56 is 0.224. 22, I believe, is 0.221. So obviously, your bullet is smaller than your bore on the 5.56. So you have a bullet that's bouncing around in there, and you're getting lead filling in your landing grooves. And if you fire a lot of that and don't clean it properly, you can cause a bore obstruction and cause the gun to blow up. The accuracy is not there. I understand why it was developed. The military development for using in indoor ranges. Does it work? Yes. Overall, I would much rather get a separate upper receiver with a proper 22 long rifle barrel myself. I have one sitting right next to me up here. I've had it for probably 7 or 8 years. I did a 22 long rifle 2-part series for Small Arms Review, tested it, and the overall accuracy on that one was not nearly what it was for the dedicated 22s. But for as far as lighting up the barrel, I'm not a fan of it.
Over 250 people in here. Don't forget to hit the like button. What is your reason for preferring DI over piston?
Well, DI is a piston. You've heard me talk about the term internal versus external piston. Overall, the system is lighter. In my opinion, it's more reliable. You have less moving parts, and also the way the rifle hits you. You have a much more controllable rifle because everything is inline construction. The accuracy, because you don't have additional parts impinging on the barrel. Pretty much every reason. Until you get into really, really short barrels, I don't see any benefit to having the external piston over the internal. It's a genius system. It's combat proven. It's been around for 60, 70 years now. It works. And there's a lot of people out there who make their opinions on the system based on their theory versus how things actually work. We've done destruction tests at Colt where the rifle will fire reliably and without malfunctions enough rounds to blow the barrel up. So for as far as reliability, it's there. If you want to neglect your gun, it could, you may have a tiny bit of benefit over with having an external piston gun, but overall, it's so minute that it's not. Most of the people who say, "Oh, I prefer external piston," is more based off of theory than reality. Especially when you're looking at a lot of these ARs that are put together improperly, where you have ones malfunctioning. Taking a mil-spec Colt or an LMT, comparing that to any of your favorite piston guns, I would challenge you to show me why they're better and they're more reliable.
What are your thoughts on Sharp's rifle?
You're referring to the 20. Oh God!
This is for 626 native. If you want to clarify which one you're talking
No,
about.
I know which one he's talking about, but
okay.
but I'm trying to remember that you're talking about the Sharps cartridge. Unfortunately, the actual nomenclature of it's escaping me at the moment, but I know exactly what he's talking about. It's an interesting cartridge. It's one that has never taken on. It's one you're going to have a hard time finding ammunition for. I would probably not recommend it because of that. It was a failure. You're probably better off looking at a Valkyrie over that. A lot of these companies who've made up their own cartridges and stuff, they just don't stick. And if you look at the 224 Valkyrie, 224 Valkyrie is a really good cartridge, but boy, it died a quick death. Fortunately, they're still being supported as far as ammunition, but cartridges like that, and then you have the Wilson 7 or 5.56 by 4 or 5 or what the hell it was that they did differently. They don't last. They're not, so as far as ammunition is concerned, it's just not a good idea.
Is the Monarch 123 grain 7.62 by 39 steel case ammo and Barnaul 123 grain 7.62 by 39 steel case the same ammo under 2 different brands?
Yes, it is. I have actually both back there, and yeah, they are the same. You only have a few companies in Russia who are making this ammunition for export, and they're under different names. You have Silverberry, you have Barnaul, you have Tula. And there's a couple other ones, but you look at all the Red Star, you look at Monarch, you look at Tiger. What the hell's the Tiger one? You only have a few companies who are making it. So yeah, you'll see quite a bit of that.
Do you see yourself ever having a bigger AK collection?
No. The AKs that I have right now, I did keep the ZPAP. The ZPAP I really liked. I don't see any AKs. I mean, I've only got like 5 or 6 AKs. I don't have a large collection of AKs. I do have the 3 AK-74s, but it would have to be something that was really special about it. I don't really see that my AK collection expanding.
What is the best suppressor for a 5.56?
That's a really difficult question because there's a lot of good ones. I use Silencer Co. I love Silencer Co. Silencer Co. supports me. I use their suppressors for everything. I do have a couple of the Joe Moe's Equus Defense ones, and I do have one of the Allen Engineering, but I prefer Silencer Co. There's nothing wrong with the other ones. I mean, it'd be harder for you to find one that's bad. So I don't get support from anybody else. And also, I don't really care because the Silencer Co. do everything. I'm getting ready to suppress a 338 Lapua with a Silencer Co. 36M. But I can't tell you that Silencer Co. is better than Gemtech or Yankee or any of those. I can't tell you that because they're all well made. So I don't think you're going to go wrong as long as you stay with the top tier.
Would you consider the BRN 180 as a duty rifle? Is it in the same class as FN or Colt, or maybe even LMT?
No. That's a commercial rifle. It's a gun to go out to the range and have fun with. No, I would not put that in any line for any kind of a duty or a real world gun. No.
Is the FN SRP G2 16-inch AR rifle any good?
Yeah, I can't say anything wrong with it. FN does good work. There's nothing. I don't see anything wrong with it.
What's the best 7.62 DMR in your opinion?
Well, there's several. I mean, my DMR I have primarily is my LMT MWS unlock. Knights makes beautiful ones. Quite frankly, as long as it fits that configuration, I mean, hell, you can even Aero Precision is really good. It depends on how big your wallet is and what you're willing to spend. But you do have really nice ones, but you have a lot of less expensive ones that are going to do just the same job. She's sniping.
No. Well, there's only one. Only one. Just some idiot who was saying that we only answer questions from Patreon members, which is funny because how would he know who's a Patreon member?
Yeah.
Which is not even true. What is your take on Atlas or Accutac bipods?
I don't have any Accutac. I have Atlas and I have Magpul, and my primary one are Harris. I actually have a lot of preparation for the Harris because I have the smaller ones that make them easier for bench shooting. The Magpul one that I have sits up a little bit too high. Atlas are very nice as well. I like both of those. There's several of the ones that they just sit up too high to use, for use on a bench. They work decently when you're laying prone, but they're too high for a bench. And all my shooting is done off of a bench. I have to say, my preference probably would be mostly like Harris, and I put Atlas as a number 2, and then I probably would put number 3 as Magpul. But it's not one of those situations where you have a lot of them that are good out there. I just have certain ones. Now the finest, literally the finest one was done by Bobro. They had one that was probably the nicest bipod ever made in the face of the earth. The only problem was it was so expensive. There were so many parts to it that they stopped making it. But the Bobro one was absolutely gorgeous. But that's goes without saying. You can't buy them anymore.
Kevin on DonorBox, thank you, Kevin. What is the preferred zero distance for a red dot self-distance pistol?
Quite frankly, my pistols are all zeroed at 10 yards because if I'm going to be using them in a self-defense situation, I would rather have it at for a little bit closer than 25 yards. But I would not do it beyond 25 yards. Probably anywhere from 10 to 15 yards probably for me would be ideal. Again, there's a lot of these things that there's no right or wrong answers for. It depends on what you want to do. I can tell you what I do and why I do what I do. But when I do my zeroing, like for my carry concealed pistol, which is my Sig P320, my P365. I had read that on that one, and that one was done at 10 yards. I've done a lot of them recently. I did a Glock Gen 5. I've done my CZP-10, Glock 41, Red Dot. All the ones have all been zeroed at 10 yards, and I've been shooting them at 25 yards on steel, and they're all on target.
JB says thank you for answering his question.
JB?
A JB on here.
Oh, okay. Sorry, my daughter has a friend named JB.
Why would a handgun company purposely design a horrible trigger pull weight and stroke?
Lawyers. Lawyers are terrified that the trigger pull is too light, that they could be sued for negligence because they had a quote hair trigger. That's what killed Colt's All-American 2000. When you have too many lawyers who are working for a company who are not gun people, that comes into it. It's all about liability. It's the same thing with ARs. Why you don't find enough ARs that have the non-mil-spec triggers. Mil-spec triggers are designed to be accurate, but to be heavy enough where they're not going to go off accidentally.
Colby, thank you for your donation on Donor Box. I didn't see a question. I did email you in case you left it off, but thank you.
I'm looking for some of the new Beretta 92Xs. If anybody has one of those or are willing to let us take a look at, I would appreciate it. I'm looking to do some more videos on some of the more modern Beretta pistols, and I have great difficulty with getting a hold of Beretta to get any of their guns. But I'm looking for some of these newer ones that are, say, newer than the 92A1, something from ahead of the 92A1 forward, like the 92X.
What is the best pistol caliber carbine out there? SP5, NPX, Scorpion, Strybog, PSA, AK V9.
I am not going to answer that. And I'm going to tell you why. Over the next week or two, I'm going to be doing a video where I'm going to be doing a comparison between the MP5, the Colt Pattern 9mm, the Scorpion, and the MPX, where I'm going to be doing just what you're asking me to, and I'm going to be doing a whole video on it. So I don't want to spoil the fun for you or spoil the climax of my video. So stay tuned.
That's good. I bet some more comparison videos people would like to see. Michael on Donor Box, thank you, Michael. I only do external piston. Other than HK's rest are super relative. I can't pronounce this. Arms. 5, I built 3 are 5.56 and 2 are 7.62 by 39, and one of each are LWRC and POF. Only DI is a Vevcor Elite. My first 3 were all external piston, and I guess it stuck with me. Not a DI hater. Thanks for the great videos. And he said, "Anon."
No problem. As I said, it's nice. That's why we have all these choices, so you can choose what you like. When external piston was introduced, really when HK released it and they did all their marketing and all their military push to go to it, a lot of people drank the Kool-Aid. What I mean by drank the Kool-Aid is a lot of the claims that were made by H&K about the 416 were not. Some things that weren't true, and they made a lot of claims of superiority that were irrelevant, like bolt carrier temperature. You see a guy go out and fire 100 rounds, and then pull his bolt carrier out, and so he could hold it with his hand. And oh, cool, that's great. It's nice and cool. But the reality is, the gun would blow up. An AR-15, M16 would blow up long before anything would get hot enough in the bolt carrier to even damage the heat treat of the spring, let alone cause any problems. But if that's what you like, there are plenty of options out there for you. Some of these things, when it comes down to personal preference, for me, for a military, I think we're doing just fine with what we got right now.
Cajun Catfish on Donor Box. Have you ever used a pre-sanctioned Russian arsenal imported SGL 21 or SGL 31, 7.62 by 39 or 5.45 by 39? They're expensive now, but I think you'd really like them.
The only Russian one I've ever had access to was the one that I bought from Krebs Custom, and it was made in by Ishmash. That's pretty much the only Russian one I've ever had really access to. My buddy Misha, he's the one that has all those, all the Russian ones.
What do you think of the new Geissele AR-15?
I've got access to one. Brandon over at the gun room was going to loan me. I got to tell you that a lot of the things, lipstick and rouge, a lot of the are not necessarily enhancing the system. For instance, their recoil spring assembly, it's all cool and everything, but it doesn't give you anything. Their rails aren't any better than anybody else's. They may be a little bit finer machined, but the price that you're paying for them, sometimes it's hard to justify those. Their triggers, on the other hand, they make probably one of the best triggers in the industry. Their bolt catches that they make and things like that, that's a matter of if you like it. Not superior or anything. Their bolt carrier group, cold hammer forged bolts, it's not new. That's been done by Schmeiser in Germany. It's great that they've done, they made an improved bolt, but they haven't improved the extractor system or the ejection system. And those are more critical for the most part for reliability than what you're doing with the bolt. I think they're going after the wrong thing. I mean, it's nice to have a better bolt that's not going to crack on lugs as well as the cam slot. But if you look at your issues with ejection and extraction, those issues are far more important, in my opinion, to enhance. But we will have one eventually to take a look at and do a review on.
Can you use a BCM DI upper on a Caracal 816 lower? Would I have to change out the buffer?
That's a good question. I don't believe so. If you use 5.56 NATO ammunition, that's one of those things you're just going to have to try, because if you look at the internal piston guns that Caracal makes, they use a H2 type buffer in there with a tungsten powder in it, and it's gassed for that. So that system is balanced with the buffer and their upper receiver. You may need to have an H. I would take it and try it. And if you have any problems with short stroking, then just swap it out with an H buffer. But you'll probably be okay. But make sure that you test it with the ammunition that you're going to be using as a defense ammo.
Thinking of getting the Meprolight M21 optic. Owning one yourself, do you recommend it?
Yeah, it's funny. Today I was just looking at the Mako Group. They're probably one of the bigger Meprolight distributors. And I was taking a look at some of those. I only have one, and I've got it on my Tavor, which I've used, and it's very, very nice. I was looking to get a couple more of them to try to do some more testing on them. Unfortunately, they weren't available to pick up the phone today. But the only Meprolight ones that I've used, I used one on the 499 Leitner Weiss rifle when I was doing Black Rifle 2. It was very nice, and they've also come a long way since then. But I do like the way that they work. I like the dial that has the 1, 2, 3, and 4, rather than hitting the button and not knowing where you're at for your illumination. That's nice. But yeah, I certainly would recommend those. Are very well made.
Thoughts on buying a surplus Carcano 91?
It's a very big hit and miss on what you're going to get. It's like any surplus type rifle. They're going to pull it out of the box. They're going to put some lipstick and rouge on it and send it out. You're not going to know what the rifling is. You're not going to know what the mechanical condition of it is. Anything that you get, I definitely recommend you take to a gunsmith to have it inspected. I've got a Carcano here that I'm going to be just for the hell of it. I'm going to be showing you the JFK one. This one here, it's functional if you fire one round at a time, but if you try loading it with the clip, it won't feed from the clip. You got a burr on the bolt, so it's not going to. It's not going to. You're not going to be able to cycle it like it's supposed to. Even though when the JFK was using JFK assassination, that one would fire, but it wouldn't drop out the clip at the bottom like it's supposed to. So what you're going to get is very hit and miss with it. That's the only thing. You don't know what you're going to get until you get it in your hands. You don't know what the bore's going to be like. So it's a crapshoot.
JR says that keep up the good work.
Thank you.
He says he has an LWRC CSAS if you would like to review it.
That actually I would. The last LWRC 308 that I had done was probably 5 years ago, 4 years ago. I've been trying to get from LWRC one of their newest Reapers that has the new the carbon fiber barrel on it and 6.5 Creedmoor, which is sort of one of their new flagships they have now. And unfortunately, the ships just have not gone in the same direction on that to make it happen. But I do have a lot of respect. I like LWRC stuff. It's just expensive, but it's like anything else. You often get what you pay for.
You can email me at hpartachi@smallarmsolutions.com if you would like to loan that to Chris. I'll pop it in the chat.
Somebody on here was said they were going to loan me a HK VP70. I hope that's still on the table because I would love to review the VP70. I got a lot to talk about with that.
What would you consider as bottom tier duty rifle in both the AR and AK platform?
Duty rifle,
Bottom tier.
Smith and Wesson, Anderson. Probably around, those are probably the biggest ones that come to mind. Radical. For as far as AKs are concerned, it's funny because the bottom tier is the most common, and that's the Romanians. Any veterans from Iraq, probably the biggest number ones that you see over there are Romanian AKs. You'll see more Romanian AKs there than anything else because they are the cheapest. They're bought in the highest numbers. In Afghanistan, I saw a lot of Russian, which were a lot of people think of the Russian as being the cream of the crop, and the reality is there's ones that are made that are much nicer than the Russians, because the Russian ones that they had back then were what they have back then is not what you're seeing now. When you look at the true AKMs, the wooden stock AKMs, the traditional AKMs, there was nothing special about those. The newer productions, the newer production ones like you're seeing now, that's a whole different ballgame than what they were. I think I also saw some East German stuff in Saudi, stuff that came back from Iraq. Of course, the Iraqi Tabuks we saw over there. I don't think I ever saw anything Chinese in Afghanistan or Iraq. Those are the main ones that we saw over there. But believe it or not, the Romanian is probably one of the most universal ones that are out there for as far as military. Are they great quality? No, but they're cheap and they cycle. You may not be able to hit anything with them in 100 yards because of a canted front sight base, but for $60 a pop, or whatever they pay for them.
Gary says thank you for the two of us for the show.
Thank you.
And he says it was a great show on how to clean your AR-15. He bought a Diamondback DV, but he's still a little hesitant.
There's no reason in the world for you to be hesitant. If you see my videos on those, I have one video on the 5.56 pattern.
I don't know if he means he's hesitant about the gun or if he's hesitant to clean the gun.
I don't know. If you're hesitant to clean, you shouldn't be. If you follow that video, it shows you how to do absolutely everything that you need to do. Very, very simple. But if you're hesitant to fire because of the gun, there's no reason you should be. You'll be quite happy with it.
Kevin on Donorbox, thank you, Kevin, has a fix been developed for the West German Sig Sauer P-series pistols with the welded slides or the dual roll pins for the breech block brake. Can a commercial spiral wound roll pin be used in place of the dual roll pins, or is there a reason for the weak link in the design? It was always a weak link, and it changed when Sig USA started making the stainless steel slides. And if you notice, the stainless steel slides replace all. They're no longer produce the rolled steel with the and they deal with the insert. There was never a fix for that. There was two roll pins. One was embedded in the other. It would break. I don't recall ever seeing a aftermarket fix for that. It was just part of the beast. And the reality was, by the time that happened, something else was going to go first in the gun. It would take a lot to do that. And then once they switched over to the stainless steel barrels the stainless steel slides, that problem has completely gone away. So I think it was just one of those things that it was part of the design. And then when they did their product improvement, when the P229 came out, they fixed it. Are dropping barrels for different calibers a good idea? When you drop in a barrel, say for a 40 S&W to 9mm, if you don't change out the spring, are malfunctions bound to happen?
It depends on what you're talking about. Quite frankly, I would never do the 40 to 9mm. If you're doing a 40 to 327 Sig, no problems at all because you're using the exact ones. Um, when you're going to something that is the same breech face, there is no problems. Um, Obviously, when you switch from a caliber that's lower pressure, like a 9mm, to a 40, it's generally a good idea to go with a proper recoil spring. The stuff's balanced for a reason. I would make sure that anything that you convert, you change your recoil spring out with the barrel.
Yeah, Gary's hesitant to clean.
Dude, you follow that, you'll have no problems.
And he's probably one of the best cleaners of
Yeah.
guns ever.
You got to do it.
So many people will bring their guns to him to have cleaned because
if you have a buddy who's a vet, they know how to take apart these guns. Have them show you how to do it. For as far as I'm sure if you have any issue at all, it's just going to be with the disassembly and reassembly. If you have a friend who's a veteran, have them show you how to do it. I mean, I'm sure you'll find friends who have ARs who can show you that as well.
And watch the video and maybe watch it a couple times. Watch it while you're doing it too.
Yeah.
And if it makes you feel any better, Gary, when our son, he was getting into retro guns and he needed to take it apart to clean, Chris did not know how to do it. He was the expert.
It was a Mosin they got.
The expert was on YouTube looking at videos on how to take it apart.
I do World War II forward. I don't do.
Well, that might make him feel better, though. Even you have to look stuff up too. You don't.
It's funny. It's the bolt actions I don't understand. I think it's an automatic or a full auto. I get that. I don't seem to do too well with the bolt actions.
Ernesto wants to know, as a Colt expert, do you know what the difference between the XM177E2 and the CR GAW5AA? Both are retro, but I haven't found the answer anywhere.
XM177E2 has a forward of 6. The GAW5 doesn't. That's the main difference. If you have an XM177, they're pretty damn close. But the 177E2 is the Army version that has the forward assist.
Is there such a thing as a Colt 2013 era touch-up paint? My 6920 SOCOM got marked up bad.
You just get some aluminum black from Birchwood Casey. Take some lighter fluid and dry off that area just to degrease it. Get a Q-tip, put that on there, let it sit, and then hit it with oil to remove it. You'll be fine.
Other than heat and wear, is there anything that could damage the chrome lining of an AR-15 barrel?
Just with extended use. The chrome will eventually crack with extended use. It also depends on how well the process was of putting it on it. But generally, life of the barrel, it'll be good.
Raymond on DonorBox, thank you so much, Raymond. He said, finally doing the JFK. I'm excited. Thanks for your hard work. Yes, Raymond, it's going to be a lot of work.
It's going to be her biggest challenge.
One video is morphed into 4. We're trying to set up a shot list before we head into Dallas so that we don't, waste time. But all our gear has finally come in so that, I have the proper headphones so that I can listen to the audio as he's saying it, so I can make sure that it's, it's ready and set to go.
Well, the way it's going to be presented,
I haven't read his question.
Oh.
What would the best buffer configuration for full auto suppressed use? Rifle versus carbine versus Voltor, etc. Adjustable gas block is not currently an option.
Well, I mean, if you're using a carbine and you're using M855 or something with an ogive like that, an H. If your barrel is a heavy barrel, you have to use an H too. It depends on what your barrel is. That's your biggest feature is your barrel and your gas tube length. So that's generally how this works. Your rate of fire and your type of projectile. If you're using, say an M193, you don't even need an H buffer. You can use a standard buffer because that was what the H buffer was designed to slow down the bolt, so you could allow the M855 enough time to rise, so the tip wouldn't go into the barrel extension or the front on top of the receiver. But if you're using M855 or using Mark 262, you use an H buffer. But if you're using a SOCOM barrel, a heavy barrel, then you need an H2. And you'll know that pretty quickly if you get light strikes. You'll know if you need an H2 or not. So my guess is I would first off determine your ammunition and then your barrel. Just bring out to the range with you both an H and an H2. And if the H works, you're good to go. If you're getting light strikes or bulk carrier bounced, and you switch over to the H2, and I'll take care of that. All depends on what system you have set up.
Michael on Donor Box, thank you, Michael. AR and 6.8 SPC or 6.5 Grendel, which would you choose? No explanation needed.
6.8 SPC, and I will give you an explanation. And the reason I tell you that is first off is reliability. The 6.8 is much more reliable. It's much more, the design of the cartridge is more reliable. You probably will get a little bit better accuracy at longer range with the 6.5 Grendel, but overall, what I would want the a 6mm cartridge for, I think the SPC is a much better round overall.
I'm interested to know if Chris would know when an LM marked M16A1 upper would have been manufactured.
Oh, LM, all that is a spare part. That's what that is the government wanted to buy a whole bunch of spare parts for upper receivers. They put out a bid. One of the company said, we'll take that. The same thing with, you see a PM on a receiver. That's the same thing. It's a subcontracted part number. If it's a Colt, you'll see a C on there, or a Colt's 13629, or if it's an FN, you'll see FN or their, I forget their cage code. But if you see any of the other ones, it's going to be just parts that are subcontracted out, and they use a different code for them.
What do you think is the best concealed carry pistol?
Well, all I can tell you is what I use. There's a lot of nice ones out there.
Sean says G19.
I have a subcompact, and I carry every day. It's a P365 with a TLR6 on it, and that goes it's in a pocket holster. That is my everyday. Every day I walk out this house, I drop it into my pocket. Now, if I'm going to be carrying something in a holster that I'm going someplace where I'm not really happy about, or something like that.
I'm not very happy about. Those would be the places I make him go.
or a place where you're around a lot of people where you're a little bit more of a risk. I have a G45. The G45 is a Glock 19 with a Glock 17 frame. Of course, I have bigger hands, so it fits me better. So it depends. You have your compact, which I would agree with you, the Glock 19, or in my case, the G45. But my everyday is something that I don't. In Texas here, you don't always wear a belt. It's hot. You don't wear a lot of heavy clothes. This drops in my pocket. It looks like I'm carrying a big ass Android phone.
And he is not kidding when he says he has big hands. His hands are literally like paws. Like, I held my hand up to his one day and I was like, my God, yours are like twice the size.
The size Sasquatch.
I mean, they really are. I
want to also let you guys know there's going to be a video coming up in the not too distant future. And I'm going to be going over the rifle that I will be using as a Bigfoot rifle for my Bigfoot hunt.
Yeah, he wanted to do something fun.
I really liked how Mac did the alien thing.
Yeah.
And I thought what Mac did the alien thing was like inspired me to want to do a video on my Bigfoot gun.
As soon as he said to me, I'd like to do something fun for the channel, which, he never says, right? So I'm like, okay. And he's like, what about what my gun would be for Sasquatch? And I was like, oh, you just saw Mac's video about the alien gun. He was like, yeah.
Yeah, Tim inspired me on that one.
Yeah. So he changed it to Sasquatch gun. So I said, hey, if we're going to do this, we got to do this right. I want to see you in some forestry, some wilderness.
I'm going to have them.
And yes, with the gun, yes, we have to. I'm going to make him do it. If I have to,
the forestry at my range is a bayou. I'll probably get bit by a freaking water
that's
moccasin.
Literally what you said. He was like, well, we could do it at the range. I was like, that's a bayou. We're not
bit
going
by
out
a water
into
moccasin
that.
or a rattlesnake out there.
No, we're not going out into that. Dorian on Donor Box. Thank you, Dorian. I don't see a question, but if you have one, please email me and let me know. Do you ever dabble in older U.S. military rifles like the Garand or Krag or 1903?
Garand. I have a Garand that I got many years ago from a friend who got it from the civilian marksmanship program. As you guys know, I don't like the M14s. When I got with Mark Westerman, he had told me about the Beulah M14. I don't like the M14s. 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 I don't like the as I said, when he tells me it's the nicest one he's ever seen, I listened. And when I got the Beulah M14, I said, I'm going to look at this a different way. I'm going to look at this as what it should have been, a target rifle, potentially a competition rifle, something that's fun to shoot, not as a military rifle. And that changed my perspective on how I felt about the M14. When I take away the fact that it was a failure as a military gun and it never should have been, and I look at it as any other rifle that you would have as a target gun, I've had quite a bit of fun with it. So doing the video that we're going to be coming up with the Beulah M14, I'm going to be bringing out the M1 Garand, and we're going to be taking a look at the two guns. Obviously the similarities and what minute differences there are between the two. But really, that's really as far back. The Sturmgewehr is probably as far back as I go. I don't do anything with anything else. At some point, I talked to Mark Westrom, again, a friend of mine. I wouldn't mind getting an M1 carbine if I could find one. I'm not going to spend, what the current asking prices are just to have, one in my collection. But I would like an M1 carbine, so I would have a collection of pretty much the U.S. military, autoloaders. But I never did. I never got into the bolt action stuff. I don't know. In fact, I don't own anything that's not semi in rifles. Everything I have is semi.
Yeah, it's our son that likes.
Yeah, he's the one that likes the
stuff.
most of the guns. He likes the 98Ks and the Enfields. He likes all that stuff.
Dorian is offering for you to come to Oregon so you can look for Sasquatch.
That's a good area. It's all that whole upper West Coast has been very active. They have been seen in Texas, but not very often. So this really isn't good hunting ground down here.
Is the original Colt Delta Elite better than the newer model that was released several years ago, and what's the difference?
They were very different. I know you're talking about the CAR-15 A3. The CAR was a true rifle that was designed for that. You had a specific barrel for it. You had a free-floating handguard. The Delta, this is sort of funny. This is an inside thing. And I talked to a guy who was at Colt at the time. They like to tell you that they were range selected. A Delta was a range selected AR-15 A2 H-bar that because of the accuracy, they pulled it and put the scope on it, which wasn't true. All they did was pull AR-15 A2 H-bars off the line, swap out the pistol grips and stock, throw in a box with a sling and the Delta and the rubber armor scope, and that was it. So there was nothing special about the Delta other than all the accessories and the upcharge, and they marketed it as something that was more accurate. It wasn't. The CAR A3 was Colt's first true containment rifle, or their first somewhat DMR rifle. They had made some efforts with a low mass trigger, but the trigger still sucked on them. It was still one of those things you need to change out the trigger. But unfortunately, at the time when the CAR 15 A3 came out, it was the 170 diameter hammer and trigger pin, and nobody was really making a trigger for it. And also, a lot of those rifles had the auto sear block. But they are completely different rifles. If you were really looking for something that was accurized, the CAR, yes, Colt accurized rifle. That's what that stands for. I would definitely go with a Colt accurized rifle over the Delta. The Delta, unfortunately, was a lie for as far as it being a hand selected. They didn't hand select them. They just added all the accessories on it.
Well, guys, thank you for joining us. I hope that you guys have a really happy 4th of July. We will, in Texas, be blowing things up as we do here, and cooking loads of meat.
Absolutely.
Chris will be manning the grill. And I hope you guys have a safe and happy 4th of July, and we will see you next week.
Thank you very much. You guys take care. Have a good night.